and the future generation can continue to afford. Any growth that is too far exceed may not be the right thing, because it does affect. So I'll get the message. Okay, I want to come back something which is a bit more closer, public housing. Yeah, many of my agents, many of our salespeople, and actually even though we say that we have got more than 40%, to be very precise, we have got 48% of public housing market, and that's huge. One of the key things here is this, a problem that was raised about the dropping lease, the leasehold of an aging public housing property, and it has also become, to an extent, very much political last year when our Prime Minister had to address the issues about concerns in the market. And a lot of issues are also in the near future, late future, maybe you who will have to solve some of these concerns as far as policies are concerned. If all of us know time to come, you will be having more responsibility. Yeah. So what do you think about the public housing dropping lease, and what is their future for Singaporeans owning such properties?
Well, thanks Ismail for the question. Your question reminds me of, when I was running the Monetary Authority, I had to travel quite a lot. So on one trip, I was traveling to one of the key cities in the Asian region, which I shall not name. So that evening, one of my staff who was with me on the trip said, Mr. Heng, this evening there's no official program, so can I go and run an errand? I said, yeah, go ahead, you're not needed for the work, go ahead. So I said, then she told me, I have to run an errand for my grandma. I said, oh, that's very nice of you. You're so close to grandma, you're running an errand. I said, what are you going to do? He said, my grandma had a boyfriend when she was young. I said, your grandma still remember your boyfriend? He said, yeah. After so many years. And he said, when they were courting, boyfriend said, let's get out of Singapore. There are more opportunities elsewhere. So he came to this city that we are in today. And after so many years, grandma still thinks of him from time to time and said, please go and check whether he's still alive and what is his life now. So I said, important mission, please go ahead and do it. Next morning, I met her and the other staff over breakfast. And I said, how was the trip? I said, I found grandma's old boyfriend. But, I feel so sad. I said, why? I don't know what to tell grandma. Grandma's old boyfriend is living in a rental unit. He's been living there for years. It's a small, tiny little unit. And, he is poor and barely sustaining himself. And when I look at the house that he was renting, I felt so sad. So I said, why? He said, well, I'm so glad my grandma stayed back in Singapore. Not because, then I came out of that chain, right? But grandma bought a HDB flat, when she got married. And thereafter, she upgraded to another flat. And the family has been living together. Grandma's children and grandchildren all own their own HDB flats. They're all staying in HDB. They all own HDB. And grandma's flat that she bought is now worth, and that was almost 20 years ago, is worth hundreds of thousands. And grandma has the option to do what she wants with the house. Grandma's boyfriend is living in a rental unit. And I said, oh dear, what are you going to tell grandma? I said, I don't know what to say to her. But maybe I'll just say something nice that at least the boyfriend is alive. Yeah. Now, I share this story because when you think about it, the one big policy that Mr. Lee Kuan Yew and his team of people did for all Singaporeans was to have this compulsory CPF savings, and from there you can use it to buy a house, and that so many of our citizens own a property And as I said, we have to look at property not in the short run, but in the long run, as to how the economy is growing and how wages are going up. So in the earlier years, our GDP was growing significantly, 8, 10, 12%. And that is the reason why the government had the ability to build all these houses, and that's why our citizens have the ability to buy those houses. And as I said earlier, you asked me about long-term property trend. Property prices depends on economic growth. So in the earlier years, when our economy was growing strongly, property prices shot up. Now, who owns those property? Our citizen. And as a result of which, many of our citizens now have a nest egg. Right? Not only do our citizens have a nest egg, I as finance minister have a nest egg because previous finance ministers did not just anyhow spend the money, but we kept it as reserves. So how many of you know that this year's budget and last year's budget, the returns, 50% of the returns from our reserve, known as net investment returns contribution, is the biggest source of revenue for our expenditure. More than GST, more than income tax, more than corporate tax. Which means that even if I double GST, or double corporate tax, or double income tax, I still won't have enough, if not for this big sum that we get. And it's 50% of our return. So we are very lucky that in the earlier years, in the first 30 years in particular of our independence, when the economy was growing strongly, many of our people bought property. The government was careful in the spending, and now the government has a nest egg which we are now spending for our people, and our people have a nest egg in the form of a house. And compared to my staff's old boyfriend, who are still suffering in the rental unit. And that's the reason, by the way, why we have fewer tycoons in Singapore than many other cities. Now, as to a question, right? So, it's very important for us to recognize about this lease. Now, let's imagine that today you are a 25-year-old and you decide to get married and buy a flat at the age of 25. Our latest data on life expectancy is 85. Which means that you buy a 99-year property, and you stay from 25 to you are 85, right? 60 years. And 60 years, you still have 33 years left. Is there still value in the flat? Absolutely, right? So this debate that is going on that, no, this is a terrible hoax, property, this is macam rental. I mean, come on, get real. At the age of 85, you decide whether you want to pass on the property to your children. You decide what you want to do with it. There's still value in that property. What is the value of the property? It depends on how well the economy continues to grow. But there will be value in the property. It's not going to go to zero when you are 85. And two, even if you decide that earlier, instead of waiting I'm 85 and do something about it, I decide to do a lease buyback. I decide to move to a smaller property because my children are all grown up, so why do I need a 5-room or a 4-room? I don't need 3 bedrooms anymore. It's only husband and wife, old couple. I've seen many of my residents move into a studio apartment, and they're happier because they say, well, look, it's easier to maintain, easier to clean, and just 2 of us, and I'm happy to live with neighbors who are about our age. We do things together, and yet I get value out of that flat. So I think it's important for us to see that in perspective.
Ken, sir, we agree. At the end of the day, Singapore being small, 99-year lease, whether it's HDB or private property, one day it will have to expire so that the subsequent generation will continue to have land, and we are supportive of that. Yep, and we are positive about that.
By the way, I should share with you a story. Just 2 weeks back, I was in a session like this, a smaller one, of course, and somebody said, Mr. Heng, it's the fact that we have 99-year lease and indication that the government thinks that Singapore can only last 99 years. Then somebody came out and said, no, it is because we believe that Singapore will last forever, that's why you have 99-year lease. So I asked the gentleman, I said, can you please explain? He said exactly what Ismail just said. At the end of 99 years, the property can be recycled, and you find that you can have new users for it. And that is why for our industrial estate, the leases are even shorter. The reason is that the industry will change and transform. And if somebody owns a land and decides that, I'm going to sit on it forever, I'm going to do nothing, you cannot do anything. And the economy will not grow. Our young people will have no opportunity to buy. So if I sit on a, HDB, is freehold property, lasts forever, then what will happen? It means that the next group of people can never buy, unless they buy a resale. And it's because we think that Singapore will last, we hope, forever, that we have a policy that we can continue to recycle, and that the land can be put to better and better uses.
Thank you, sir. The next question I'm going to ask you here is something that came from a couple of my salespeople. Yep, I think we were talking a lot of macro, then they say, yeah, tell me, what do I get something for me? Yep, I'm not, it's more of a suggestion, but probably may not have an answer immediately. It's perfectly all right, but at least if you can say whether this could be addressed and re-looked into it. One of the biggest challenge for salespeople are they are not fixed salaried, and therefore being on a commission base, the current TDSR requirement here is this. If they want to take a loan or mortgage, they will have a 30% haircut, which means if my salesperson earn $100,000 in the eyes of a financial institution with a 30% haircut, is only annual $70,000. And therefore he get a lesser amount of, and then you take 70,000 with the TDSR, everything goes down. The request that they say from a logical perspective, and we can also understand why commission earners are subjected to haircut, because it is not consistent economy market. But yeah, the request here, if as a salesperson consistently for the last 2 or 3 years I earn 100, because that's the capacity I want to work. People earn 200, but I want to work consistently 100. It has been proven. Can I not be subjected to the haircut based on my previous year's consistency? Because after all, fixed wages, no guarantee. Tomorrow he'll lose a job and he's jobless. And they say that as salespeople, we are never jobless. It's just that whether we earn the income or not. So, that being the case is... So the actual request here is the current 30% haircut seems to be a bit tough on freelancers and commission earners. Is it something makes sense for us to put this forward as a request?
You are always welcome to put forward the request. But as to what the Ministry of National Development would do on this matter, it is for the ministry to consider. I do understand the challenge that you face. But again, I think it goes back to what I said earlier on, that at the end of the day, this one is sustainable. Because if it so happens that during, and I mentioned earlier on, that property goes through cycle. There will be up periods and down periods. There will be periods for which you are doing extremely well because property prices are going up. And at some point, the property cycle comes down, the economy goes up, the economy goes down. So the so-called haircut is really more like an averaging. That, over a period of time, what is the correct averaging? And I think what will be the correct averaging depends very much on what we see, with more experience, with more data, you can see whether 30% is excessive or whether it should be 40%, whether it should be 20%. And we've got to look at the data, number one. Number two, even for every one of us, at the end of the day, the question is it better to look at something for which you have some margin of error, margin of safety? This is not to encourage everybody to be completely risk averse and say, I will never buy stocks or I will never buy something because it will come down. I mean, there is a difference between putting money in a fixed deposit for which is safe, relatively safe, and for which you earn low return, and buying equities for which you earn the equity premium. So there is room for a diversified portfolio for most people, and including property. But for the biggest item that any one of us will probably have, which is a house, any particular house that we live in, you don't want to end up with so little margin that anything happens, the whole family, including the children and all that, will be in a bad shape. So what is the right margin of error? What is the right margin of safety? I say we'll have to continue to study. And if you have evidence to show that, the margin of safety is a bit too excessive, I'm sure that the ministry will review it.
Good, sir. We will put up another paper